What if the person you cared for never even knew you existed? For 1 year, a young nurse devoted herself to a billionaire trapped in a coma until the day he finally woke up. But what happened next will leave you speechless. This is a story of love, memory, and the heartbreaking power of silence. If you enjoy emotional stories with twists that keep you guessing, make sure to give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel for more powerful content, and drop a comment below. Do you believe love can survive even when memories are lost? 1. The mysterious accident. New York at midnight. The city glittered beneath a blanket of mist and neon, skyscrapers slicing through the fog like silent sentinels. But inside a matte black Lamborghini Revuelto speeding down the empty Manhattan Bridge, Benjamin Ford felt nothing but stillness. The dashboard glowed softly. Time, 11:47 p.m., speed, 120 kilometers per hour. Benjamin leaned back in the driver's seat, one hand casually scrolling through his phone. Dozens of unread messages flashed across the screen. Business deals, board reports, investor memos, the kind of things he never ignored. But one message made his thumb stop cold. If you want to live, don't trust anyone. His brow furrowed. No sender ID, no trace, just a number he didn't recognize. Before he could react, the screen flickered. An incoming call from an unknown number lit up his phone. Hesitating, he answered. Silence, no background noise, no breathing. Just the sort of silence that pressed down on your chest like something was watching. "Who is this?" he asked, voice low and tense. A moment passed. Then came the reply, a voice deep and devoid of emotion, cold enough to send a chill into his bones. "Enjoy your last moments, Benjamin." Click. The call ended. The line went dead. Benjamin sat frozen, his grip tightened on the wheel. He had received threats before, hackers, competitors, angry investors, but this felt different. This felt real. He slammed the brake. Nothing happened. Panic shot through his veins. He pressed again. Still nothing. The speedometer ticked up, 140, 150. He tried shifting gears. No response. His heart pounded. Number. No, no, no. The car wasn't responding. The car had been hacked. Outside, the bridge blurred past in streaks of white and orange. A sharp turn loomed ahead. There was no time. Benjamin gritted his teeth, yanking the wheel with all his strength. Useless. The car was no longer his. 3 seconds, 2, 1, impact. The Lamborghini slammed into the guardrail, metal shrieking, glass shattering. His body jerked violently, saved only by the seatbelt. Then, silence again. The vehicle pitched over the edge, plunging toward the icy river below. Water exploded around him as the car crashed beneath the surface. Inside, freezing water rushed in, flooding the floor. The dashboard lights dimmed. The pressure closed in. Benjamin gasped for air, his mind spinning. He tried the door, locked. Outside, the city lights faded into black. Something floated from his pocket, his keycard, spinning slowly in the dark current, drifting away. His vision blurred. His fingers gripped the wheel one last time. This wasn't an accident. Someone wanted him dead. And if he didn't find out who, this night would be the last thing he ever remembered. 2. 1 year in silence. The cold pierced everything. Then, darkness. A single beep broke through the void. Then another, slow, steady, faint. Mount Sinai Hospital. 1 year later. The room was pristine. White walls, polished floors, sterile scent. The machines whispered softly beside the hospital bed, their blinking lights the only signs of life. Lying motionless beneath crisp sheets was Benjamin Ford, the billionaire who had once ruled the tech world, now reduced to nothing more than a breath tethered to wires and silence. He looked peaceful, almost like he was just sleeping. But Grace Turner knew better. She stood by his side, her fingers trembling slightly as she adjusted the blanket over his still chest. For 365 days, this room had been her world, and Benjamin her mystery. He had been wheeled in that night, soaked in blood and river water, his body broken, his mind shattered. Everyone said he wouldn't survive. The damage to his brain was too severe. The neurologist had called it a miracle that his heart kept beating at all. But Grace didn't believe in miracles. She believed in choices, and every day for the past year she had chosen him. At first he was just another patient, another tragic name with too much money and too many enemies. But as days turned into weeks and weeks into months, something changed. She started talking to him, sitting beside him, hoping, needing. She didn't know when exactly he became more than just a stranger in a hospital bed. All she knew was that she couldn't give up. Not again. Grace turned to the window, her gaze drifting over the city far below. The street still buzzed with life, oblivious to the man who once shaped its skyline, now lying unconscious. Just like they had been oblivious when her mother faded in a hospital room no one remembered. I couldn't save her, Grace whispered to herself, eyes burning. But I'll save you. She turned back to him. Same heartbeat, same silence. Her hand moved to his, warm, human, still there. You probably can't hear me, she murmured, but I'm still here. And then, something changed. So small, so fleeting, but real. His finger twitched. Grace froze, her heart stopped. Benjamin? No response. The monitors stayed steady. It could have been a reflex, a nerve, a trick of her mind. But she had watched this man for 12 months. She knew every breath, every blink on the screen. That wasn't nothing. She reached for his hand again. If you can hear me, come back, please. Outside, the world moved on. But inside this room, the air held its breath. And deep in the darkness of Benjamin Ford's mind, something was shifting. An invisible tug pulling him up from the abyss. A whisper, a warmth, a voice he couldn't name but one he'd always known. 3, awake, but lost darkness. It stretched endlessly across Benjamin's mind, heavy, suffocating, formless. Time didn't exist here, only silence, only stillness. But then faintly, like a ripple across still water, came a sound. Beep, then again. Beep, beep. The rhythm grew sharper, clearer. An invisible thread tugged at him from the void, dragging him toward the surface. And then, light. His eyes snapped open and the world exploded in pain. A sharp, blinding ache pulsed through his skull as if someone had taken a hammer to his thoughts. His chest heaved, lungs gasping for air like he'd been drowning, because maybe he had. The ceiling above was too bright. The walls were white, clinical, cold. The beeping, was that a heart monitor? Disinfectant stung his nose, but beneath it something else lingered. Vanilla, faint, familiar, and then a hand, warm, steady, holding his. His eyes fluttered, vision blurred. A shape hovered before him, and slowly it sharpened into a woman's face, pale with shock, eyes wide and shining. She was beautiful. But more than that, she was known. Who is she? His mind whispered. Why does she feel like something I lost? He tried to speak, throat dry and cracked. His voice came out broken, uncertain. Who am I? The question hit the air like a thunderclap. The woman's lips parted. She staggered back a step, visibly shaken. For a long moment she said nothing, only stared at him, as if her entire world had just been ripped apart. She had imagined this moment 1,000 times, but never like this. He was supposed to wake up and remember her, remember himself, not this. Swallowing hard, she forced her voice steady. Your name is Benjamin Ford, she said softly. You were in an accident. You've been unconscious for a long time. The name meant nothing. No images, no memories, just syllables bouncing around an empty chamber. But still something inside him stirred, a flicker, a ghost of a feeling. He looked at her again. Her eyes were deep brown, filled with something heavy. Hope. pain. And you, who are you? He asked. Her throat tightened. Grace Turner, she said after a pause. I'm your nurse. Just your nurse, she wanted to add. But it wasn't true. Not anymore. Benjamin's gaze didn't leave hers. Confusion churned in his chest, but beneath it was something else. A weightless pull toward her, unexplainable but undeniable. If she was just a nurse, then why did his heart react this way? The silence stretched, broken only by the beep of machines. I feel like we've met before, he said slowly, like speaking a dream. Grace inhaled sharply, because they had. But now, he didn't know it, didn't know her, and yet somehow, somewhere deep inside him, he did. E4. The first cracks. Benjamin couldn't sleep. The hospital room was too quiet, too still, a silence that felt unnatural, as though it were hiding something just beyond the walls. He stared at the ceiling, his body weak, but his mind slowly stirring back to life, piece by piece. He didn't know who he was, didn't know his past, but he knew one thing for certain: something wasn't right, and he felt it most when he looked at Grace Turner. She said she was just his nurse, but when she stood in the doorway, when her eyes met his, there was something in her gaze she didn't say out loud, something that trembled just beneath her calm smile. How long had she really been there? How long have you been with me? He asked suddenly, his voice breaking the quiet like glass. Grace froze in the doorway, caught off guard. His tone was no longer weak. It was sharp, deliberate. She hesitated before answering, her voice soft. Since the moment they brought you in. Benjamin's heart faltered. Since the moment I fell unconscious? His fingers curled around the blanket. That wasn't a nurse's duty. Not for this long. Not like this. She turned to leave, but stopped as his voice cut through the air again. Grace. The way he said her name, it wasn't the stutter of a man reading a chart. It was familiar, spoken like someone who'd whispered it in another life. She stiffened, her hands trembling at her sides. Something flickered behind Benjamin's eyes. A shadow, a whisper, a flash of warmth, but it vanished before he could hold on to it. Have we met before? He asked quietly. Grace didn't answer, because the truth was yes, but if she told him, would he believe it? Would it bring his memories back or push him further away? That night, Grace couldn't rest. Something about the look in his eyes haunted her. He didn't just forget. His mind hadn't just lost memories. They had been taken. Her instincts screamed at her, so she did something reckless. She snuck into the hospital records room. The room was dark, quiet except for the hum of servers. She slipped behind a desk and accessed Benjamin's file through the internal system, but as she scrolled, her breath caught. There were two versions of his accident report, one written a year ago, brake failure due to mechanical malfunction, and one uploaded 2 weeks ago, driver error, speeding, loss of control. Her hands went cold. Someone had changed the story. Someone had altered the truth. But why? She leaned closer, snapping a photo of the screen for proof, and just as she turned to leave, the door creaked open. A figure stood in the doorway, tall, cloaked in shadow. Not a doctor, not a nurse, and definitely not someone who belonged there. His eyes locked onto hers. He didn't look surprised, as if he'd been waiting for her. You shouldn't be looking into this, he said quietly. And in that moment, Grace knew. She had just stepped into something much bigger than either of them could imagine. 5. Hunted. The door creaked wider. Grace's breath caught as the shadow stepped into the dim records room, his footsteps silent against the tile floor. He was tall, dressed in a long black coat, and his eyes, cold, unblinking, landed on her with the weight of someone who already knew too much. He wasn't surprised to see her. He was expecting her. You shouldn't be looking into this, he said, voice low, calm, too calm. It wrapped around her like a noose. Grace's fingers clenched tighter around her phone, still glowing with the image she had just captured. Every instinct screamed at her, "Don't let him know. Don't let him see you're scared." "I was just updating patient files," she said quickly, keeping her tone light. "I didn't mean—" He took a slow step forward, then another. "You're a nurse," he interrupted smoothly, "not a detective." Grace's pulse pounded. Her mind raced. There was only one exit, and he was standing right in front of it. He wasn't here to talk. He was here to erase her, just like the files. She stepped back instinctively, brushing against the metal shelving behind her. Her eyes darted to the stack of paper files beside her elbow. She had one chance, one breath. Then, she moved. With a sharp motion, she knocked over the entire shelf. A wave of folders and binders crashed to the floor between them. It wasn't much, just seconds, but it was enough. She ran, bolting from the room, heart thundering, lungs burning. Grace sprinted down the corridor, not daring to look back. Behind her, she heard his footsteps follow, calm, measured, but relentless. He wasn't chasing her. He was hunting her. She turned a corner, nearly slipping on the freshly mopped floor, and darted into a stairwell. Down 2 flights, her breath ragged, her fingers white around the phone. If he caught her, the truth would disappear with her. She burst into the parking garage, her footsteps echoing in the empty concrete space. It was past midnight, no witnesses, no one to help. She reached her car, fumbled for the keys, and then a hand clamped over her mouth. She screamed into the palm, her body thrashing in blind panic. "You were warned," the man hissed into her ear, his breath ice against her skin. "You shouldn't have come this far." He began dragging her backward toward a black car waiting in the shadows. Her panic surged, her heel connected with his shin. He growled, tightening his grip. She did the only thing she could. She bit him, hard. He cursed and recoiled. She broke free, but only for a second. He lunged again, grabbing her hair, yanking her back. She hit the pavement hard, dazed, breathless, his fist raised. Then a blur moved through the darkness. A solid punch landed across the man's jaw, sending him reeling. A second strike to the ribs dropped him. Benjamin Ford stood over him, chest heaving, eyes blazing with fury. "Let her go." 6. The truth revealed blood, dripped from the man's mouth as he stumbled back, clutching his ribs. His eyes flickered with pain, but it was nothing compared to the surprise etched across his face. "Well," he muttered, spitting red onto the pavement. "Look who's back from the dead." Benjamin said nothing. His stance was tense, body coiled like a loaded spring. Every instinct screamed to finish the job, but something inside held him back. He had questions. But before he could speak, headlights roared to life behind them. A sleek black car screeched toward them from the far end of the garage, blinding light cutting through the shadows. The attacker used the distraction to break free, sprinting for the vehicle. The car door flew open, and within seconds he was gone, swallowed by the night. Silence followed. Grace slumped into Benjamin's arms, trembling. He caught her just before she collapsed, steadying her gently. "Are you hurt?" he asked, voice low but thick with something she hadn't heard before. Rage laced with fear. "I'm okay," she whispered, still shaking. "But this isn't just about your accident. Someone is trying to bury the truth, and they were willing to kill me to keep it buried." Benjamin's jaw tightened. Something cold settled in his chest. "I know." He didn't know how he knew, but deep in the place where his memory used to live, he felt it. This wasn't over. It was just beginning. Hours later, the bar sat in the back of a quiet alley in lower Manhattan, cloaked in neon blue and cigarette smoke. Benjamin pushed the door open, the weight of what he was about to do pressing heavy on his shoulders. Inside, a familiar figure waited at a corner booth. Ava Mitchell, the woman who had once been his closest advisor. She sipped whiskey slowly, her expression unreadable as he approached. "Took you long enough," she said, her voice calm but her eyes watchful. Benjamin didn't sit. It was you, wasn't it? You knew all along. Ava gave a quiet laugh, not amused, but bitter. No, Ben, I didn't do this to you, but I know who did. He narrowed his eyes. Then talk. Ava leaned forward, her voice dropping to a whisper. You didn't lose your memory because of the crash. Your mind was wiped because the mouse made you forget. The name hit him like a knife to the ribs. They're real, he asked, the words barely audible. She nodded. And dangerous. Ella Scott, she found something inside your company. A hidden system, laundering money through AI contracts. She told you everything. Benjamin's vision spun. Ella. Her name echoed in his mind, slicing through fog. You loved her, Ava added quietly. And to protect her, you made her disappear. Flashbacks surged, tearful eyes, trembling hands, a cursor blinking over the command. Erase all records. He staggered back, his world unraveling. Ava's voice followed him like a ghost. They let you forget. But if you keep digging, Benjamin. She paused, deadly serious. Grace will be next. 7. The goodbye. The morning sky was a shade of cold, muted gray, the kind that held back the sun, like even light was afraid of what was coming. Grace stood by the lake just outside the city, where the wind brushed across the surface in shivering waves. The silence here was different from the hospital. Not clinical, not sterile, just still, just sad. She turned as Benjamin stepped into view. His posture was rigid, his coat fluttering gently in the wind. But it was his eyes that told her everything. Something had changed. You found something, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Benjamin nodded once, slowly. Everything. Grace's heart sank. Then why do you look like you're about to disappear? His gaze dropped to the water. Because I am. She took a step closer. Number you can't, not after everything. I have to, he interrupted gently but firmly. The mouse, they're not just watching me, they're watching you. And if I stay, you won't survive what comes next. Her throat tightened. We've come this far together. You can't just walk away. A faint smile touched his lips, one filled with sorrow, not warmth. Grace, we were never walking the same path. I just didn't realize it until now. She shook her head. Don't do this. But he was already pulling something from his pocket, a burner phone, its screen flashing with a new message. Benjamin Ford. Status. Deceased. In that instant, everything changed. His bank accounts, his digital records, his ID, his existence erased. Grace stared at him, horror blooming across her face. What just happened? Benjamin looked up at her, his expression unreadable. They killed me. No, that's impossible, she whispered. They erased me, Grace. I no longer exist. Not to them, not to the world. She lunged forward. Then fight back. We can take this to the police, the media. They own the system, he said bitterly. You'd be dead before you finished your first sentence. From behind them, the sound of tires on gravel. 2 men in black suits stepped into view at the edge of the clearing. They weren't here to talk. Benjamin turned to her, urgency flashing in his eyes. Listen to me carefully. You don't know me. You never did. Tears welled in Grace's eyes. Don't you dare. But he was already stepping back, hands raised. One of the men barked, Grace Turner, you need to come with us. She spun around defiant. I'm not going anywhere. Benjamin's voice cut through the wind, low and urgent. Please don't make this harder. And with that, he turned and walked away. She tried to follow, but the men blocked her path. Let me through, she cried. He never looked back. 1 week later, Grace opened the door to Benjamin's old hospital room. Empty. Only a small folded note remained beneath a vase of lilies. Her hands shook as she opened it. His handwriting was unmistakable. Trust me, I will come back. 8. The game begins again. The city moved on. Skyscrapers gleamed beneath a slate-gray sky. Traffic roared, lights blinked. Life pulsed through every corner of New York, as if Benjamin Ford had never existed. Because officially, he didn't. In the system, he was dead. Every trace had vanished. His accounts, his identification, his company access. Even the news had been quietly swept. No headlines, no inquiries, no obituary, only silence. But in the back seat of a black SUV speeding down the highway outside the city, Benjamin was very much alive. He stared out the window, the skyline blurring past. On the seat beside him was a new phone, sleek, unregistered. It buzzed once. A message flashed on the screen. "Welcome back, Ford. The game has just begun." Benjamin read the words slowly, his expression unreadable. The chill in his chest deepened, not from fear, but from clarity. The mouse had declared war the night they drove him off that bridge. They thought they'd buried him, but all they had done was wake him up. He opened the window slightly. Cold air rushed in. The weight of his old life had been stripped away. The name, the company, the man who played by the rules. What was left was something sharper, something more dangerous. This time he wouldn't play defense. This time he would make them bleed. Across the city, Grace Turner stood in Benjamin's empty hospital room, clutching the note he left behind. Her fingers traced the words, "Trust me, I will come back." She wanted to believe it, wanted to believe he was out there somewhere, still fighting. But fear clawed at her chest like a living thing. She'd seen the men in black suits, heard their threats, felt their eyes following her even now. She hadn't told anyone about what she discovered in the files, hadn't shown the photos to the police. Something inside her told her to wait, to hold on. Because if Benjamin was alive, he would need time, and she would give it to him. Still, doubt lingered. Was he really gone? Or had the mouse succeeded in erasing him forever? She turned to leave the room, heart heavy. That's when her phone buzzed. No caller ID. One new message. Her breath caught as she opened it. "We're not done, Grace." Her blood ran cold. Meanwhile, deep beneath the glow of a nondescript safe house outside the city, Benjamin stood alone in front of a massive digital screen. Multiple encrypted windows flashed open, financial records, old surveillance footage, deleted chat logs. Each one tied to a name he had almost forgotten, Ella Scott, the woman they made him forget, the reason this all began. His jaw tightened, his eyes darkened. He would find her. He would dismantle the mouse, and he would protect Grace, no matter the cost. Because this time, he wasn't coming back as a CEO. He was coming back as a ghost with nothing left to lose. 9. Shadows of the Past. The screen flickered in the dim light, lines of code scrolling like falling rain. Benjamin's fingers hovered over the keyboard, eyes locked on a video thumbnail labeled simply ES Final Session. He hesitated, then clicked. The footage opened to a room bathed in blue computer light, familiar, distant. In the center sat Ella Scott, her face pale but defiant, fingers trembling as she clutched a hard drive. "Benjamin," her voice came through, cracked and urgent. "They know." She looked directly into the camera, into him. "I found it, the laundering, the shell companies hidden inside your AI framework. They're using your system to wash billions. If I disappear, don't believe the reports." She held up the drive. "This is everything." Then her voice faltered just slightly. "If they find me, I'm dead. And if you remember this someday, I hope you'll forgive me for what I asked you to do." Benjamin watched in silence as the memory twisted the knife in his chest. He remembered now. Everything. Ella had been more than a hacker. She had been his partner in code and in life. She had made him laugh when nothing else could. She had challenged him, changed him. And when she uncovered the truth about the mouse, she gave him a choice: expose them and die, or erase her to protect them both. So he chose. He chose to forget, to destroy every trace of her existence, and eventually his own, to protect her, to protect the world from a truth that could bring it down. But at what cost? Benjamin closed the video. The weight of that decision pressed down on him like gravity. He stood slowly, walking to the window of the safe house. Outside, the city shimmered in the distance, bright, alive, utterly unaware of the war that had already begun. Grace was still out there, watching, waiting. He had left her behind to keep her safe, but the message she received, "We're not done, Grace," proved the danger hadn't passed. They were coming for her. Again. Benjamin pressed his hand against the glass, a storm rising in his chest. They thought erasing him had ended the game. They didn't know it had just begun. Lesson learned? Trust built on lies will always collapse, but love built on sacrifice, that endures. Benjamin had sacrificed everything, his name, his future, even his memories, to protect those he cared about. But now, with the truth back in his hands and the enemy still watching, he understood something deeper. Sometimes, in order to reclaim yourself, you have to let go of who you were. He turned away from the window, his voice quiet, resolute. "I'm coming for you." No longer a billionaire, no longer a victim, now a ghost in the system. To be continued. The city lights blinked like Morse code on the horizon, and in the shadows the mouse watched, unaware that the one they thought they buried was already moving against them. The end? Not yet. Because ghosts don't forget, and neither did he.